This episode was recorded at COPA, Africa's leading contemporary music institution, situated at 14 Park Crescent, Riverview Office Park, Midrand. For more information, visit www.copasa.co.za.
And then for some reason, someone got us a gig to open up for, wait for it, the legendary Jabu Kanyile.
What?
Yes, sir. In Braamfontein. The gig was in Braamfontein. It was a one-man show at Jabu Kanyile. May his soul rest in peace. And we got to open for him. And we were looking good. We had 2 guitars, and I was the main vocalist. And I was playing at Cosmos under 19, 18 years old and 19 years old. And after that, with everything that I had experienced around football and the politics of football and me having this other opportunity with Malaika and with Jabu in my ear telling me you're a superstar, I knew that football is not the direction I want to take. It's too painful, man. Ask anyone that's played the game at the highest level.
Thank you very much. We're doing since 6 Donald's episodes. Slate 6, take 1 now.
Kupa episode le tlhagisa rasta le camera di ono la. Eh ke batla tlhagaela yana.
Ba mmona.
Ba mmona. Ke batla go motsa potso gore ha minister wa ane minister are what sa ga justice. Ane minister are people like to zol. How did it make you feel?
Minister of thing.
Wa in the minister in COVID. Ka COVID
Are people like to do what?
like to zol.
Mm.
Oh. When people zol, they do it like this. Yes. When people zol, they do it like this and blah blah blah. And clearly, I have to support in the Rasta community. Or embrace it.
I can't really remember that hantle mara ke a gopola fela nyana gore le minister na bua ka dizol. Mara the way a buileng ka teng, it seems as if he was saying the right things about rolling the joint. No.
Mara, why do you, but I have a question. Why do we always think Marasta like every minute of their lives Batuville? That's not the case, no?
No, that's not the case.
Exactly. So I'm sure only 7 hours and
Okay, Rasta. What's name in a day?
When mostly I smoke in the morning and late at night.
So to be no.
No.
Good morning. It's after morning.
No, it's in the afternoon now.
It is the afternoon.
In the morning.
Like 4:30 a.m. Before I drove to work.
And then he last time
Ilasta na kwekai.
I know it. Rasta. So the like high level standard, ne? Yo. Yeah.
Jack.
Abuti.
Welcome.
No, I eat.
And your drip, Maji. I want us to discuss your drip.
Yeah.
Because
Damn, are we starting there?
yeah, similar that.
Damn, okay.
You always up to date.
Yeah.
Any point in time of a generation,
Yeah.
you look dripped up to that generation.
To the generation.
How do you maintain that? Do you have a stylist?
Yeah.
What happens?
Well, I mean, at the level that I kind of have been operating from,
Sure.
you do kind of end up having body stylist, body designer and stuff. Mara, naturally, if you can check a history from Muso, Kirata style, I just love to look good,
Was Mizo
was the beginning.
okay?
Of
The first
career.
album.
Yes, Mara, as a group, if you remember. Muso
Wait, the song that Energy is from a group. I thought it was your solo joint.
No. Where my career started was in a group. So if you go back and do research on the group that I started my music career with, you will see we were even ahead of our time. Ka di tai, le di ing, di check what, like, I've always been a fashion guy.
Let's go back to the group.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many members and
3 members.
from where?
The 2 guys were from Polokwane. One from Seshego, the other one from Libwakgom.
La kupane la kae?
And then in Nuggets were Northern.
La kupane la kae?
Rekopani Jozi ka university, basically.
Ah.
Yeah, so I was here, ko UJ. Pleasure, Limatlatsi were friends around. I don't even know how these guys actually ended up coming to UJ, because they were not studying at UJ. But they ended up in the campus playing guitars, Bali too. And then I got joined one day, almost like as a, you know, you go campusing, if you see someone in the little corner there
Saifanya.
playing guitar. Yes, almost like a Cypher Maria,
Yeah.
the singer.
Yes.
You know, we call it a jam session,
Yes.
basically. So these guys were jamming there, go Concowen, actually outside of Concowen, the Concowen Theatre there, go UJ.
Sure.
Formerly known as VetsTech.
Yes.
Yes.
Santsona le meropotso.
Ke meropotso.
Go loga.
Oh, I know. Come on. I wanna chama boy that has never ever had cornrows in Chaka. So, Majita ke kopane le bona go UJ ba jema ka ba joina. We didn't even know each other's names. I just started singing Shapadi Harmony. Literally, and that's how we became a group. Literally, like that.
Same time next Kausane.
Pretty much. That's exactly how it happened. Same time tomorrow we met again, jam, every single day, jam. Before you know it, we are creating new songs. And here's the interesting thing, and that's why for me, I think that thing became a thing, because it was a different thing for me. So I always sang in English too. I was an R&B, full-on R&B guy. But when I met these guys, they were singing Gaspedi Listswana. And that was so interesting to me. And that's what I would say that's what drew me to them. And every single time I would jam with them. And then before you know it, we were creating our own songs in Sepedi, in Setswana.
Did you guys record a project or a single or anything?
What? Man.
Hey man.
Yo, Limonka, you don't understand.
I thought I knew you because of your first solo.
No, dog. I come far, dog. I'm 20 years in the music industry this year. It's 20 years, literally. I started in 2006. Well, our first album came out in 2006. But we met in 2004, 2005. We recorded the album 2006. The album came out. But here's the story. We are jamming, and then people around the campus are getting to know about us. And then we're getting invited to perform at people's birthday parties. We're performing, and then for some reason, someone got us a gig to open up for, wait for it, the legendary Jabu Kanyile.
What?
Yes, sir. In Braamfontein.
That is crazy.
The gig was in Braamfontein. It was a one-man show at Jabu Kanyile. May his soul rest in peace. And we got to open for him. And we were looking good. We had 2 guitars, and I was the main vocalist. And so I was the vocalist, because I was dealing with vocals, and then the 2 guys were playing guitars and singing. So 3 vocals, 2 guitar. And from that gig, someone saw us and told Ntate Selalo Solota about us. And that's how our professional music career started. Selalo reached out to us and signed us as a group. And yeah, at 19 years old, I was.
This is crazy, and I'll tell you why it's crazy, because I thought I knew.
You knew, yeah. Yeah, no.
I thought, okay, sharp. Then I'll take a talk about what can you tell me.
Hey, man, there's a lot.
And then I convinced myself, no, it's not about me.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, there's a lot. We started off on a high. So this week we were getting signed, performing go Bramu, performing go Dikoning, go Bramu. In 2 weeks' time, we were at Moretele Park opening up for Ntate Selalo Solota. So what he did, every single time he got booked, he took us with. And then when it's time for his 45 minutes or 1 hour, he said, you guys go do 10 minutes with his band. So same band. So we were basically like his sound check. So the band will play our songs, we'll play 2 or 3 songs. And then we were performing for 30,000 people. Like immediately. I was 19 years old.
Yeah, you really started on a high.
Yeah,
because
no, that's why I couldn't finish. I didn't finish. Because now I had to go back to campus. How do you go back to campus? You just
After
perform for
performing for
30,000
30,000
people and you're like, yo, this thing is happening. I'm becoming a superstar overnight. I can't do this thing. These books, they did.
obviously, well, not obviously. I'm sure you guys recorded one album.
Hey, yo, can you?
No, do your thing.
No, you want me to answer this?
Hey man, I don't know, or maybe
It's my manager.
I know come on.
Come on.
Yes.
Yeah. We recorded music immediately, basically. So Silalo signed us and immediately
Recorded and touring at the
put us
same
at
time.
work. Put us at work. We started touring with him while we were recording the album. Our first album under C Lota Records. That was his record company at the time. Yeah. And we made some really amazing music, man.
How many
together.
albums?
One album. We did only one. We were signed for 3, but you know, just like any other group story, you know what happens.
I don't. I've never been in a group.
Hey man, the group ordinarily drama too. Hey, the group ordinarily detail about.
Sure.
Yeah, no. So we got to that point where no intervention.
I'm sure you thought you were the Beyonce.
Yeah,
Arben.
not even.
Arben.
Nah, not even. I wasn't even that like aware of myself at the time. I was still too young.
Sure.
But we did get to a point where the 3 of us are kind of we are struggling with. And I think there was a power dynamic situation happening there on who should be the leader or who, you know what I mean. And then others are saying no, but there shouldn't be any leader. You know. But someone is saying, no, but I put this thing together. You know, I'm the one that said, gents, let's do this group thing, you know? So that's what started happening. And I think our egos, as Majita also, man.
Especially Medi.
I mean, in fact, now we used to get on that stage and every age group of women used to lose their minds, man. From day one. This is literally something that I could say has been a common factor, common element in my career throughout. I've always known who I'm performing for. So
when you write, you know Bualeman.
Yeah, of course. Let me tell you a funny story. At UJ, before I met the guys, I was part of a development program called COB, Currents of Blackness.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard about it, but the instructor was this other guy from the East End by the name of Opa Sitela. He used to have a patch.
Sure.
So he was known for that. He was the music guy who has got like an eye patch.
Sure.
And so it was almost like a joy celebration. So he was like the Lindeland.
Yes.
I
I
used
get
to
you.
put us together. There was about 25 of us, 30 sometimes.
Been doing this much.
Yeah. So I was part of that group and we used to sing mostly gospel. So we do mostly gospel, a bit of R&B, sometimes Tatamiyana, Afropop. But the main thing was gospel music. And he used to take us to churches where we could perform as a group. And I remember this one time, I was performing at a youth church thing on a Friday. I don't remember whether it was here in Joburg or in Mpumalanga, but one of the two. It was such a long time ago. And I was doing a solo. There was one of the songs where I was the solo and then the choir was supporting. When I came out to sing this gospel song, and I sang my first line, my brother,
The girls were a gallery.
and I'm like, no. So in my head, I'm like, yo, but we're at church.
Oh, I see.
So after the show, I remember vividly, Opa said to me, bro, you know, I'm learning you as we go. And I'm realizing it does not matter what you sing about. It's always going to sound like you're singing to a woman. It's always going to sound like it's a love song. Even if you are singing about the trees.
Heal the world.
Heal the world. It sounds romantic. It's the tone of your voice, the way you deliver. So even singing in church is gonna be tricky for you going forward. So just know that you are the
There's
love
a
guy.
challenge.
You are the love
Heartthrob
guy.
wena, ubone.
Yeah. So even going into becoming a professional, if you ever, because this is what he was saying, if you ever decide to be a pro musician, think along the lines of being the love song guy. It has to be R&B love songs or nothing. It didn't make any sense, bro. Like literally, anytime I would get, even the girls in the group, even the girls in the group, as soon as I start singing, there's like some skinnering and you know what I mean? They just can't. And I knew, man. I knew early. I knew very early who I was going to be. So, yeah.
Now, ukupana ka litliu.
Cleo, interesting conversation. So while I was going through a breakup with Majita, which I think it must have been 2007, maybe a year later after the album, into 2008, as part of my way to pay bills and have some extra cash, someone recommended me to Zonke, to be Zonke's backing vocalist.
You've
Yes,
been
sir.
grinding.
Dog, you know when they say, what is it? Is it 1,000 hours or what is it?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, no, I really did it.
You put in the
Yeah,
work.
no, I put in the work. I put in the hours. I was Zonke's backing vocalist for a couple of years, maybe 3 years at most. And in one of the shows that we did, where we had 5FM used to have these live
Yes.
performances where they would bring an artist to
Yes.
come and do like the 5 live.
On a Sunday, ne?
Something like that.
Yeah, Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and Zonke was featured on one of those days, and I was the backing vocalist. And for some reason, I can't tell you how this happened because I was a backing vocalist, so I never had a solo. I was just backing Zonke. You know, there was 3 of us. It was me, the late Winnie Kumalo. We were both.
Wait.
We were both. So me and Winnie
That's
Kumalo were
crazy.
Zonke's backing vocalist.
That's a
Yes, sir.
What?
Yes, sir.
You've been surrounded by greatness from
From the
gate.
get-go, from the top. Cleo saw me that day. So for some reason, so they used to do these shows and get like a crowd of like 20 people in the room. So like a room like this, maybe slightly bigger, and there'll be 20 people in there as crowd to come and enjoy this live performance. And Cleo was in the room.
By broadcast.
Yes. And Cleo was in the room that day. After the show, he came to me and said, Exe, I need you in the studio on Tuesday. And I'm like, what? DJ Cleo's in the like that.
Do you think you're a don't answer now.
Yeah.
Let me finish my thought because I don't want you to jump in.
Okay.
Do you think you're a terrible backup vocalist? The reason I asked this is you didn't know how to tone down and be a backup vocalist. You came out and did your thing.
Nah, I wouldn't say that. I think
Cleo picked you
I would
out.
say Cleo is a music genius. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay.
So I've always known how to blend in the choir because I sang in the choir. My mother was a choir master.
Sure.
So I know how to be part of a group. And so no, that wasn't the case. And also, man, it was just, I don't know what it was, bro. Every show that we performed at, there was always someone that was focused on me while I'm doing my backing vocalist show. I guess there was always something about me that was always like was always pointing me out of a crowd, like, yo, but what's up with that guy? You know, and I think that's probably what that was. Cleo saw it, and he invited me to the studio, and he didn't say anything much. He just said, yo, I need you in the studio on Tuesday. This is the address. Come through, come with Winnie. Because I think at the time he already knew Winnie. They were already friends. And then I went through to the studio and recorded on Escalini 5. I've got a song on Escalini 5 and I was a nobody. Nobody knew who I was.
This is crazy. At what point do you guys start working on your album now? Because clearly that was just a session.
Yeah,
Peace out.
he called me 4 months later. So imagine I called for a session.
Sure.
I did one song on his album and then nothing. And then I'm like, yo, hold on, like, was this guy just inviting me to be a vocalist? Like, is he not trying to sign me? What's happening? And then one day I wake up and Given Ngwenya is calling me. I didn't know who he was at the time.
Given
Ngwenya. Boss, I think
Soweto.
So yes, his record label is Born. Is it Born?
Born in Soweto.
Born
Born in Soweto, born from Soweto, something like
that. Yeah.
And then with Colin Apart.
Yeah, so he was Cleo's, he was Wheel of Steel Productions label manager at the time.
This is crazy.
Yeah. So he gave me a call and said, Morena, Cleo wants to see you for a meeting, but basically just prepare yourself. In short, we are offering you a contract. Just like that.
Did you sleep that night?
No, I didn't. I didn't, my brother. I couldn't wait for the for the meeting. I went through to Wheel of Steel. We met, and they offered me the contract. and I was just like, oh man, I've made it. Oh my God, I've made it. Oh, this is the time. I was like, this is the moment. This is the moment. I've always known Uru Group where is wasting my time. And hey man, listen, the journey with Wheel of Steel was really interesting because it didn't go as I thought it was gonna go.
How did it go?
I think me signing to Wheel of Steel Productions was meant to teach me a couple of lessons and prepare me for what's to come. It wasn't meant to blow me up. I wasn't meant to blow up in that moment. And I was very sure that I was going to blow up because at the time, if you remember, every artist who was signed into Wheel of Steel was becoming a superstar.
Yeah.
From Bricks to DJ What.
But your blind spot was there was never a singer.
Yes, I was the only one.
Yeah.
So it almost felt as if Cleo was almost like trying to see how far he can take it when he diversifies. Because I was the first singer, first soul artist actually. Because at that time, if you remember, we were in the era of Afro Soul. Afro Soul was a big thing. Was Pogazi around that time. So I came in. We worked on the album. It took a really long time because he's such a perfectionist, and he didn't want us to take any shortcuts. The album was expensive. It was an expensive album because it was recorded live with the band. Yep, the whole
That's
album.
why then it sounded the way it sounded when we spoke on the phone the other day.
Yeah.
Because I was like, no, man.
That's a full band. And if I had to tell you, Lemonka, the people who played in my album, hi, my brother, I'm talking legends, like legendary musicians. Yeah. So, Cleo, we did that album. The album came out. We dropped Know You Better as the first single. It didn't blow up. It was just there.
Who was the distribution?
No. Who was Wheel of Steel working with at the time? I don't really remember. Because I think they had a distribution.
Because I remember seeing your posters in Auckland Park.
For the album?
Yeah, for the album.
Yeah. I don't remember. It might have been... What's this label, man? The one that Black Coffee bought. What's the name of this label?
So,
It's one of those.
the song.
Yes. Yeah, I think it must have been that. It wasn't Sony. It wasn't... No, it wasn't Ghetto Rough. He was definitely not working with Ghetto Rough at the time. And it also wasn't Universal. But it was... I think it might have been that one. Yeah. So... But it didn't blow up. It didn't get me all the gigs. I was introduced. It was an introduction. Because I got to almost kind of grab the attention of the industry. So maybe more so not the fans, not the audience, but the industry. So I was recognized by the people who work in this industry, who run this industry. So radio people started knowing about me, TV people started knowing about me, the newspapers, they were aware that Cleo has this new artist, but he's not yet there,
What was the... Because I don't remember Little Donald on this first album. Uno Samagama.
What do you mean?
You know the Donald, that's it. Or wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I was just Donald. Well, I mean, in fact, the first album is called Just Donald.
Eh,
The album is called Just Donald.
technically Donald.
Yes. Yeah.
Because just Donald.
So
you must just say Donald.
Yeah, so it's, I guess, what do they call it? Is it self-titled? What are they?
Yes. So contractually, you're like, you know what? Clearly, I'm signed as just Donald. Kiaka Donald. Or
Oh, you want to know how I got to the name?
yes.
The stage name? Or no?
Yes.
Interesting story, actually. Before I got signed to Clio, around that time while I'm doing backings for Zonke, I get a call from Kelly Kumalo.
Kafela, man.
Yeah, in fact,
She's calling you Nachis at that time.
Yeah,
She's calling
let's
you.
not go there. Over.
2005.
Yeah,
And she was all over the place.
She was
As a single.
She was the hottest.
Legit, she was a song, Tabus.
Yeah, it was a song. Yeah.
Like, I don't
It
know.
was one of the hottest songs.
Okay.
No, listen, dog. She was hot as an artist. She was hot herself.
Those black and red, that red and black beats.
The beats, Yabuti.
She calls you and say what?
So how we met was someone she wanted backing vocalists, and then someone referred me to her, and then I did I did one show with her
Sharp.
as a backing vocalist. She wasn't always performing live, but for that one live performance, she called me in, and then after that she had my number.
Sharp.
Then she one day calls me, and then she says, "Can we have a meeting?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting. What is this about?" She's like, "No. We want to talk to you about possibly signing you."
And El Bonsai.
No, Le Prosper.
Okay.
Yes, because she had a
That's after
record
Bonsai.
label.
Yeah.
She had a record label with Prosper at the time. So I go to Rosebank. We met at the Zone. I remember it like it was yesterday. You know, I sat with them. We had lunch, and then they spoke to me about what they were interested in doing. That they wanted to sign me, and then I wasn't very sure. I wasn't sure about how the interview went. But what I was sure about was, I was asking them, "Yo, I'm thinking about this name thing. I don't know what to go with. I have some options, At some point, I wanted to call myself The Voice. And I was like, yo, yeah, that's going to be too much pressure, man. Like, everyone now, if Kabimba, one of those days, because every vocalist knows it's not always going to be perfect. Some days,
Oh, yes. Calling yourself The Voice.
The Voice is like, now I'm like the highest
You are that
level of
guy.
singing, and no one can sing better than me, basically. And I remember Chloe used to tell me that it's a little bit arrogant also, coming out of The Voice. So I wasn't sure what my stage name was going to be. And then I asked Kelly, like, "Kelly, so who do you think I should go for, as a stage name?" She was like, "What do you mean? What's wrong with your name, Donald?" I'm like, "What?" Because I never used to think it was cool. I was
Yeah.
like, Donald, and both her and Prosper was like, "Yes, that's a beautiful name. That should be your stage name." And I think after that meeting, I was very sure that I'm definitely going for Donald. So thanks to her for
Wow.
almost kind of reassuring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I got to Donald.
Ah, that's crazy. Your writing process,
Mm-hmm.
generally, back then when you were working Little Leo, in it's a like a script or a beat.
Yo, songwriting is a difficult process. I can tell you that. Ask any vocalist out there. I think being able to discover the vocals and knowing that you can sing the songs that already exist is a much easier process. Having to think something in your head and formulate it and make it a song is one of the most difficult things one could ever do. And that's why not every good singer is a good songwriter. That's why internationally they've got teams of songwriters that write for some of the best artists in the world. So for now, I wrote Know You Better. Believe it or not, Know You Better was my first attempt as a songwriter.
That's crazy.
And today is a Donald classic.
Yes.
It's the craziest thing. I was just trying it out, and I tried it out with a language that I wasn't even that fluent in, Zulu. Know You Better is a Zulu song. The only English line is Know You Better. That's the only thing I say in English.
And a personal story. I remember when I used to title tracks, I used to think of Pine Hakana, a single, go radio.
Yeah.
I would like everybody to literally be able to pronounce
To pronounce the
song.
title.
Was it the thing for you?
So for me, it was the melody that the line sits on is the melody that people will always remember. So I can't call it anything else. The chorus goes, Ngifuna injabulo empilweni yami thatha na sisandla sami I wanna get to know you better thatha na sisandla sami I wanna get to know you better. So what would you
Aye. Nah. What?
Mara
You know, I always say, but what go jelang ne? Singers are top list because they don't need an instrument, they don't need money.
No.
Laro,
It's a-
apela motho a go happy birthday, o ile so.
yeah, fela so.
Wa panya wena o happy birthday.
I bet that's 30%. I mean, I wasn't really singing.
I know, but
Yeah.
yo man,
Yeah,
they
but
know what I'm talking about.
Yep, yeah. But also, you know, that comes with practice. That comes with you doing this for everyone who cares to listen growing up.
Actually, let's talk about practice.
Yeah.
I feel like you practice everything that you do.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, I feel like even the media training somehow you've done.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yes, you've done.
Okay. If you want to put it that. Unofficially though.
Okay.
Yes.
What happened? Horore, I must be aware of whatever.
Yeah.
Sekisibuang, kisaka. Nobody's gonna put words in my
Yeah.
mouth.
So I'll be honest. Unofficially, I was trained without realizing I'm being trained.
Okay.
Cleo had a lot to do with it. So you see, Cleo is a
Super mind.
culture and a very, you see that probably one of the most important things that I learned from him. Watching from the outside, you don't really get the full experience until unaliena every day, you know. And I realized, and I was like, damn man, this level of professionalism, like I never knew. Like it made so much sense why he was successful because now I get to see the man and the things that he does behind the scenes, how he preps himself to go out in the world. And one of the things was how he deals with media, how he does interviews, the way he speaks. So I got that experience. But even before I came to Cleo, I modeled my whole career around Asha. And I learned every little thing, bro, about that guy. Everything. I wanted to know I wanted to know why that guy is the way he is and why people react to him the way they do. Why he carries himself the way he does. So I studied the culture of how to be a superstar through him and obviously everybody else. Then I started becoming so obsessed with understanding why certain artists are who they are. Because there's a science behind it. You know,
The dancing part.
yeah, no. I didn't care. I didn't feel like I needed to take everything. You know what I mean? Because I'm myself and I wanted to be myself. I didn't want to be another Asha.
Sure.
However, it's modeled my career around the way he moves. For me, that's always been the thing. And I think that's where I got most of, you know, my media training and obviously then watching a lot of documentaries, watching, you know, a lot of DVDs of other superstars, just wanting to know what this thing is really all about, you know. I think I became a student of the game early, even before I even knew what I was doing. I was already a student of the game. And if you are that type of an artist, you will eventually come across as very proper and very well-trained, very prepared. Bro, I've been a student of the game from day one. I've been in the crowd watching other superstars before I made it. I was always in the crowd and I was always alone, taking the moment in and thinking to myself, damn, one day it's gonna be me. You understand?
You were ready.
I was always ready. Yeah, man, I think at some point there was that switch that happened in my mind, in my heart, in my soul, that okay, this is what I'm meant to do. And I think that switch happened because you see, another part of my life I never mentioned was between Muso and then me meeting Cleo and getting signed, I met Malaika. Met Malaika, Jabundaba, the late, may his soul rest in peace, took me in as his younger brother, and obviously then the whole group embraced me, and took me in under his wing and recorded some music with him. And they used to take me around with the group. I used to watch that group at their height. Literally, I used to be
And
backstage.
that 100,000 sales, you were there. In the
I was
mix.
there throughout the superstardom, my brother. I was there throughout. And do you now understand why I had to become the guy that I am? I've watched greatness.
You are well trained.
You know, so when I was with Malaika, the day I knew I really wanted to do, because also I was playing at Cosmos at the time, under 19.
Hi, Utlela Tlala Yang Cosmos.
I was playing at Cosmos.
So
That's the moment when I met Malaika. I was actually on my way to practice. Go job.
How did you juggle the both? Ball or music?
When you're still young and you've got dreams, you have to do everything until you figure yourself out, until you figure the path out. I
Is it
think-
like injury or you decided or
No. After under 19, if you know how it works with development football transitioning into pro, go under 17, under 19. No, sorry, yeah, under 17 and under 19 is normally where you start kind of knowing where you're gonna go from here, because then development football ends. Now it's either you get a pro contract or you quit. You understand? Or you go via Mvela League, or you understand? So I was playing at Cosmos under 19, 18 years old and 19 years old. And after that, with everything that I had experienced around football and the politics of football and me having this other opportunity with Malaika and with Jabu in my ear telling me you're a superstar, I knew that football is not the direction I want to take. It's too painful, man. Ask anyone that's played the game at the highest level.
Justice, is it painful?
To break, to justice play.
Yeah. Someone
Yeah, but to break through justice, please, like, you know, to break through from development to pro is so hard, man. You'll see a guy that you know you're better than getting picked and getting a contract over you right in front of your eyes.
He said it, Justice.
It's difficult. It's hard. So I knew I didn't want to go through that, but also at the same time, I think that's when I also started discovering that I'm a very, very deep and spiritual human being. I never knew that. You know, I was too young to even understand that. In my spirit, I knew that if I don't pursue music as a career, I'm going to regret for the rest of my life. And I'm probably going to have the most painful life until I die. Because the thing about music, the connection I had with music was way more deeper than what most people see. People see it on the surface. But for me, being on stage performing for people and watching what that magic looks like is the most freeing, most unbelievable thing one could ever experience. And I think I got my power from that. That's how I knew that I was important, is when I was on stage singing to people. Because it's something that happens that only I can see. You guys don't get to see. I see it. I know it. It's a spiritual experience that happens for me. So I knew that if I don't follow that, I'm going to be very unhappy. So I made a decision to not pursue football because I was going to make it, bro. Me, I was a hard worker. I was probably going to even play overseas.
I know.
You know.
Like, when last did you have a muffin?
No. I don't know what that thing is.
A slice of pizza?
Nah. Listen, once in a while I cheat, but
I remember 15 years ago, it's like, all right, no. Pizza? How's your pizza?
yeah.
I know, if there's anyone that I know, strict
Yeah.
and who's focused, it's you.
But I took it all from Cleo. That's exactly how he is. He's worse. He's worse because he's strict towards everybody around him too. And if you don't follow with the program,
It's a problem.
Yeah, it's a serious issue.
What conversations did you have when you had to leave after that first album?
Yo, what a beautiful question. Yo, bro. So I was in limbo in that moment. I had just watched what was happening between him and Bricks happening in the papers at that time. I was there when the whole beef was happening. The back and forth, the jabs. And I was like, yo, I don't know if I could ever be able to go through this, man. This is just too much. Because I'm such a peaceful guy, dog. I want to be able to sleep at night and wake up, and go and play soccer or go to gym. I don't like fighting with people. And I looked at the situation. I also looked at what Cleo was doing for me, man, and how important his role was in my progression. And I was like, I can't take that for granted. Yes, I did not blow up in this company. However, the company introduced me to the industry, and that's great value. Yes, I feel like I can possibly continue without them, but I have to be appreciative and humble. So I gave him a call and I said, Morena, we've been doing this for a couple of years. It's 2011 now. It has not worked out. I feel like I'm still struggling. I'm in Bram. I'm in Melville. I'm struggling to even pay my bills. You know, I'm a backing vocalist here and there. I get gigs. Sometimes I don't. But as a solo, as an artist, as a recording artist, it's not really working out. And I think in my head, I have an idea of what I can do to help myself. And I think I can do it myself. So I said to him, I don't have desires of signing with another record label. In fact, my desire is if you are able to give me a clearance, I will start my own company immediately and then run as an independent artist.
What was this?
He couldn't believe it. I think I even thought maybe he thinks I just want to leave and then go and sign to another label. But for some reason, I think he had a lot of faith in me, man. You know, Cleo, he had a soft spot for me and he was cool about it. He understood where I was coming from. And he gave me my clearance. We didn't even go through back and forth. No, gave me my clearance and immediately I started The Exclusive Sounds. And 2 months after getting my clearance, I wrote The Love I Know I Deserve.
At what point do you call Sidiso, aka Skin Deep, or Libkupane guy?
Yes. So me and Sidiso were at UJ together, at Vets Tech together.
Yeah.
As Majita Baratang music, I
Sure.
knew he was a DJ, he loves house music. So we used to just have culture conversations, industry conversations. Culture hour, go UJ, we always met there, Kadi Tuesday. You know, there was that 1 hour. I don't know if you know about that hour.
I know about the Rusa Frank.
Yes, sir. But there's that hour.
Sure.
Every Tuesday where they used to invite, recording artists. You know,
Sure.
Bosbu used to come there to promote Go UJ, and we wouldn't have any classes
Sure.
during that hour. So the whole school, go,
Oh, Mukhari.
yes, outside.
I see.
The amphitheater. Is that amphitheater? Is that what it used to be called? But it's an outside
It's
theater.
outside, yeah.
Yeah. Sidiso, I met him there because that's where I also started making a name for myself there. You know, I got called one day to come and sing, and that's how I introduced myself to the campus. And now I became popular in the campus after singing. And so me and Sidiso started having our conversations there. Fast forward, 2012. I Deserve is blowing up. Can't tell you how because I'm not signed. It's probably one of the few artists who blew up without a deal.
Nothing.
Yeah. I Deserve is blowing up. At the time, I'm getting calls for bookings. You know the 7,000 and I'm like, yo, man, what's going on? 7,000, it's huge money at the time, you know. But I'm realizing I can't do this alone now. Because now I used to be the one taking the calls and
Invoicing.
the emails and invoicing myself and going with a friend to go to the shows. But now I needed a manager, I needed a DJ, I needed someone that can be next to me and help me.
You need a team.
Yep. And I called, Skin Deep and I was like, Mfana, I think something's happening to my career. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think I need your help. Ara, Mfana, waiti. Literally, that's how everything started. We started doing it together. We were a two-man team. 2 men. We did everything together. So I wasn't just an artist. I was also doing the work behind the scenes, helping him because he couldn't do all of that work all by himself. So we did the 2-man thing for a while, man. And a few months later, I was the biggest artist in South Africa.
How did the song get around?
It's a tough one. I think also being with Cleo and meeting the people that I met in the industry is a huge part of how that thing happened. So I recorded the song and then took some of the money that I was making as a backing vocalist to make CDs. So I made CDs of the single, maybe 100 CDs. And I used to give away the single Kostrating. Every time I kopana le uthi driving car, it's a noise, like big sound, whatever. I'd give him the CD. My brother, please take the CD.
You were your own street team.
I was in the street. I was in the street giving out my single. And then one day, a guy by the name of Simpiwe Majola. I don't know if you know him. PR guru, publicist, with the dreadlocks. He's been in the industry for a really, really long time. I met him. He's the one that introduced me to Paledi, who then became my designer.
Yes.
He called me randomly. Hey man, listen, I'm going to Metro today. I have a meeting with them about something. Do you have something that maybe I could drop off?
You're very spiritual because
Like it sounds like a joke. Ne?
because what is this?
He says, yo, do you have something that you've recorded that I could maybe drop off, go Metro? I'm like, yeah, actually I do. At the time, I deserve.
Do you even know what it takes to make that call for PR?
Bro, I don't know, man. It's a human thing. For me, my whole career has been a human thing. There's no one person who can say, I made this guy. Nope. It's all been human interaction, just love, and people just gravitating towards my energy. I met up with him because I used to stay go Melville. So I was a walk away from SABC. I could have taken this thing myself, but I didn't know the channels.
Yeah.
I gave it to him. He went inside the thing and he gave the song to Nati. And apparently I'm hearing now, right, that Nati then left it because he had to go somewhere for a while, so he was off. He left it, he left it with the team, and one of the members who was standing in for him decided to listen to the CD, and they loved it immediately. Listen, here's the thing, my bro.
This is crazy.
He left the CD there that day. It was one of the days during the week. I don't remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday. I swear to God, in the afternoon drive that same day, that song was playing on the radio. It normally takes a week or two for the team to listen to a song and then approve it and
put it on the system.
It was playing that exact same day. And that song started playing on Metro FM every single day, 3 times, 4 times a day.
How did that make you feel?
I didn't understand what was happening. So there's a moment of confusion that starts happening when that transition starts happening, when your name is now flying around without you.
And the worst part is it's your real name.
Yeah.
Couldn't you even introduce yourself?
Yeah, it was hard to also understand because I was broke. And a month into that song playing on the radio every day, I'm now hearing it in other radio stations, and I haven't sampled anyone. So now the song is getting around just off of what's his word.
Yes.
Yeah, like word is getting around, and people are asking for the song. So some people went to Metro and asked for the song and started playing it on their radio station, and it started going around. And I used to be in the taxi and hear my song play.
That's a crazy
And
moment.
nobody knows that it's me singing the song. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No one is knowing. And in my head, I'm like, taxi. And I'm like, yo,
That's my song.
do this. Even when they back announce, this is Donald, the love I know I deserve, really talented guy. And that was happening for a while, because back then, unlike now, back then, your song has to really be instilled in people's fabric for you to start getting gigs, for promoters to start making that call. So it took months before that happened. I would say the song came out in October 2011. 2012, end of Jan, I was on Live Amp, and that's also
And that was
that's also God.
How did you get there?
My brother. Another story that doesn't sound true. It all sounds like a lie. Everything just sounds like Dimani or
Making it
Shasha.
up. It was hard to get on live.
So, a friend of mine invites me to a party at, there was that club, man, where really interesting things used to happen there by Sentin there. There was that club.
Sharp.
I forgot the name of the club, but it was popular because the big people used to come, celebrities used to come, and I got invited to an exclusive party. When I got there, everybody was there, everyone you can think of. So there were a few individuals I had met through Clio that were in there, and one of those people was Jula.
Wow.
Jula was the current producer
yeah,
of
like-
Live Amp at the time. And he came to me and said, yo, bro, I haven't seen you in a while. Because the last time he saw me, I was at Live Amp with Clio as just the guy that's
Yes,
with
so
Clio,
violently.
And I was like, no, actually, I just dropped a new song that's out there. I don't know if you would know it. Because I didn't know how big the song was in the streets at that time.
But I'll sing it if you.
And that's exactly what
For real?
Bro, I said to him, yeah, but like, you know, he said, no, what's the song? I'm like, it's called I Deserve. He's like, sing it for me. In the club.
This is
And then I went to his ear. I said, the love I know I deserve. He was like, what? You're kidding me.
This Friday.
There's absolutely no, this is December.
Oh.
They have closed.
Okay.
He says, there's absolutely no way that's your song, bro. I know that song. You see, the thing is, Limonka, at some point in the beginning, before people started putting the name to the voice and the person, the face, people thought that was an international house song sung by an international vocalist because it's all in English. And
Yes.
at the time, if you remember, house music like
Was
from
very-
Europe
yes.
was very like a European thing.
Yes.
So he didn't think it was me. Nobody knew that it was me. And he said, my bro, let's look at the calendar right now. On the 29th of January, 2012, you are going to be on Live Amp as a guest and you're performing this song. And Bonang Mateba is going to interview you.
Hey.
So I have to say to you, so coming from the taxi, listening to my song playing on the radio, no one knowing who I am, a few months later, fast forward, I'm on Live Amp. Ke apere shirt nyana, like my half shirt da ke tlhagisitse something.
Tapole da.
Ke statilo sharp. Over check.
Sure.
And I'm getting interviewed by
Bonang.
Mateba. It's not my first solo interview at the time, but it was my first big
Biggest.
interview I did. And I remember after that interview, I looked at social media. Twitter was new at the time. I looked at social media and I have never in my life received so many notifications. My Twitter was going wild. And I remember Bonang pulled me to the side after the show and she said, I like this song. Do you know what I need you to do? I need you to go on Twitter and respond and retweet and comment to each and every single comment.
And you're still doing it today.
To this day, I still do it. That's what Bonang Mateba
Shout
told
out to Bonang. Shout out to Kelly Kulomalo. Shout out to Cleo.
Tula to Cleo,
Shout out to
Selalo
Tula.
Solota. It's all just been human, man. Human interaction. So that changed everything because immediately after doing Live Amp, I got a phone call on Tuesday. The following Tuesday, I got a phone call from Nolene's team to say, yo, we saw you on Live Amp. We're going to need you to come to Nolene to 3 Talk. So I was on 3 Talk a week later, my brother. And everything from there is I don't remember anything. After that, I just became a superstar, bro. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, the next 3 months were like a dream to me because everything changed. I couldn't go to the mall. I was gigging every single weekend and I started making money that I don't understand. Money that you'll never ever imagine in your life. As Ntwana also Rastimbeke, Komanzerre. Nobody even knows where that is.
I do. I've been to Kana Town Bidwang.
Town, it's on Northam.
Northam.
Where we stay.
Yes, Northam. I've been to Northam a couple of times. In fact, eventually in Northam. Opikopi was in Northam, right? And I remember being confused. Limpopo fella mo kay Northwest fella mo kay.
Yeah.
Do you think our government, our Northwest government, Northwest?
Yes, I do believe they are. Because I was born Komanzerre, raised Kokraluku, and then we eventually moved to Northam. But I'm a through and through Northwest kid. Everybody has always known that. Through and through Northwest.
So day one, when you are this big superstar, nobody invites you for lunch or is a proposal?
In the government? Nah. I've never really had that relationship with the department, if I would call them that. I'm not even gonna lie to you. It's never been a thing. And for me, so the one thing about me, man, I don't like politics. So I like to stay away from that stuff as much as I possibly can. What I can do on my own is try and inspire young people as much as I possibly can. The young people who are in a place that I used to be in. So a lot of Bana Batswana that know that I'm from there, the only thing I can do on the ground is just to be an inspiration to them. But I'm not, the thing of now having to get involved with, with governments and tenders, nah. I just, it's a choice I chose, because I could have, if I wanted to, I could have pushed for that type of a thing. But it's difficult, man. There's just too many things that happen behind the scenes that I can't live with, that I don't support, you know?
I hear you.
Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned that you made a lot of guap.
Yes, sir.
And
Oh my God, please don't. No one has come for me. I'm not rich.
I know you are. Anyway,
Yeah.
so there's this thing of when your song is not number one on radio,
Yes.
the masses or the fans think, or now you are poor or back into the taxis.
Yeah.
And I know how financially savvy you are. You invest all of this, of course, without exposing anything.
Yeah.
When these conversations happen, especially on the
social
platform,
media.
on the platform that puts you on Twitter,
Yeah.
and they come at you,
Yeah.
how does that make you feel?
And say I must go look for a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get those every time, actually. Yeah, I get those every time. No way, when I'm fair too. It's done this day. You must leave.
Totora CV.
Mfana thola CV or yeah, we will thola di 350 mfethu. This thing how I salite. I get those messages, bro. Listen, bro. Hey, I'm a different breed, bro. I was trained. I was made for this. You know, I know exactly what this is. I came into this monster knowing exactly what it is. You know, I prepared myself. Even at the height of my career, I was one of the most mocked artists on social media. But that time, killing it. When I was mocked on social media, but in real life, when I show up, the people were always
That's on stage.
the people were always happy. And I that also taught me the dynamics. You have to understand how this industry works.
There's real life and then
There's real life, and then there's this other thing, and this other thing has absolutely nothing to do with you. People are just trying to use something they can use to
Or
heal themselves.
they are going through
They're trying
something.
to heal themselves,
Yeah.
and you happen to be there for the taking to use, I guess as a crutch, as a healing crutch. And I started fully understanding that thing early on in my career, and that's why you don't see me going on social media losing my mind. Also because I know why I do this. The reasons for me being in this industry are beyond what most people think. You know, I've made real life connections with human beings in South Africa, bro. I'm engraved in South Africans. Everywhere I go, South Africans see me, they see someone familiar.
You know, the funny part about that is you've been the same guy at your height, now in between.
Yeah.
You've been the same person.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, you've pretty much taken my call
Every time.
every time.
Yeah. Over the 15 years we've known each other.
Why is that? Why go sa go tlhogong gore,
Yeah.
hey, I'm Donald.
Mfethu nna ke ngwana iputseng mfethu.
Sure.
Yeah, ke mfana iputseng. I was raised with morals. Mama is a very Hey man, listen, if there's one person I can safely say to you humbles me without even lifting a finger, is my mother. I could never do anything that I could never do in front of her out there just because now Sekile Donald, you know. I respect that woman so much. She's the reason why I am even here, you know, like being able to do the things that I do. She's one of the most intelligent, most respectable human beings I have ever come across. So humility is one of the first things that I was taught growing up as a child. So ke ngwana iputseng mohatsi mfethu nna. That's it. Irrespective of whether I meet Miguel, Asha, Nicki Minaj.
Can I read an example?
No, some of the people like me. Yeah.
I read an example, guys.
You know, some of the people.
Some of you featured. You.
Yeah, I've got music with Kenny Lattimore.
How did that feature happen?
So I was in Los Angeles in 2013 for the BET Awards. If you remember, I was one of the nominees for the BET Awards. African Act in 2013, me and Toya DeLazy actually that year. And Mandisa Makalima, who's a promoter now, is the one that introduced me to Kenny Letimo. Kenny actually came to my hotel to meet me because he was told, yo,
First name basis.
yeah, no. Kenny's my brother. He's my brother. He comes to South Africa. All I'm sure you guys see every time he's booked to come here. We chill and see each other all the time when he comes here. It's not even about getting into the studio and making music anymore. He's literally my brother because once upon a time, I think 2014, I went back to LA again. And this time it was just for a holiday. And I got sick while I was in Los Angeles. I got sick and I was diagnosed with, and I never knew this thing, by the way. I know nothing about anxiety disorder.
Ooh.
Yeah. I was diagnosed with anxiety in Los Angeles at the height of my career. And I didn't know what the hell it was. I was just kilo hotel go LA, not knowing what's
going on.
Yeah. And then he came. He literally left his house, came to the hotel, checked me out of the hotel, took me to about 3 different hospitals.
What?
Yeah, because I kept on. So he took me to the hospital, and then they would check, nothing's wrong. Because the thing about anxiety, you won't see anything from a physical point of view, because it's not physical. It's not physical. You're going through, it's an emotional, mental issue. And he took me to 3 different hospitals because I can then take a pill and take it to take me back home to his house. By the way, he took me to his house and took care of me for 2 days. Until the last hospital, they got me at least some pills to calm my whole system down. And then I was able to fly back to South Africa. And then now I had to deal with that thing, this new thing in my life that I never knew what it was. Just being overwhelmed, being overworked, and also not, I guess, just not. There's a level of confusion you go through when you get to that level, man, of entertainment as success. It will mess you up if you're not ready, and you might have to go through certain things to kind of pull yourself together again. And I went through that. I wasn't always happy even at the height of my career because there's certain elements that I felt was not connecting. I remember at the time when I realized, I've really made it. Like I made my career, I made my dream come true. But the woman I wanted to be with and enjoy this with was not next to me. In fact, at the time, she was totally even ignoring me. I was trying to like reach out and.
Oh, so no mona exist.
No, I'm talking about my ex-girlfriend.
Oh.
So there was someone who I had been with for years, and one of the biggest dreams was for us to both see ourselves make it and be together, and make it together and experience the success together. But by the time I got the success, she was in her own space and we had broken up, and while I'm getting all this love and appreciation from everybody else, she was ignoring me. And that was killing me, bro. At that time, that was killing me because I was like, we really this was our dream together. We always said one day I'm going to be a superstar and she's going to be one of the biggest, I'm not going to say her name, but she was going to be one of the biggest TV personalities, and we were going to enjoy that success together. But when it eventually happened, we were apart, and I couldn't even get to her. I didn't even have access to get to her. And I think that also played.
But
yeah, but I'm feeling so important. But does she think I'm important? Because sometimes it doesn't matter who thinks you're important. It's about, it actually doesn't matter how many people think you're important. It's about who. Who thinks you're important. And she wasn't saying anything to me at the time. And I think that played into my anxiety and depression. And also just being overwhelmed, looking at my bank account and thinking, damn, man, how? When did we get you?
What did you see? Da or he?
No, bro, I was at the height of my career.
Because this man's here
Yeah.
says depression ke a man as a tolenyo.
Absolutely not. Bro, one of my lowest moments in my life was when I had the most money in my bank account. Probably the lowest. I kid you not. I know this doesn't make any sense. And everyone,
So this broke down.
everyone is going to say, no, everyone is saying, yo, give us the money. It does not work like that. And I know, man, it doesn't make sense. But money doesn't work like that, bro. The science of money doesn't work like that. Just because you have a lot of money doesn't equate to happiness, my bro. In fact, people kill themselves while having the most money in their bank account. You know? So yeah, man, I went through a dark time at the height of my career. Lemonka, there was a time I was performing every single week and I was floating. Nigga float, I didn't know whether I was even in my own skin. I was just going through a lot. Good things and very bad things. Even at the same time, you're even getting people trying to sue you because now you see, the minute you make it, everything comes. Everything you can ever imagine. So, hey man, listen, I've lived a full life in the music industry. I do, however, feel like it's just beginning.
Have you ever taken time out to reflect and say, yo?
I think the past 5 years have been a time of reflection for me because things slowed down a hell of a lot, especially because of COVID. So when COVID hit, I slowed down, man. And I went through a lot of mental gymnastics, you know. And I reflected because I was going and going, bro. But I was going for 10 years straight. No rest, no break. I was just doing one thing after the next thing. DVD, one-man show, Carnival City, Red Mic Experience. After that, first ever visual album in Africa. You know, I was the first.
I know. We all talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Most people don't talk about it.
No, not about you.
Yeah.
They talk about, I want to do this album. I want to shoot all the videos.
Yeah. I did it first.
You did it.
Yeah, I was the first one to do it. I was the first
Probably the only one. Who else has done it?
Yeah, like a proper album, visual album, no one has done. They've done some EPs. I've seen someone do an EP, like a 6-track, and then do visuals, whatever. But I was the first artist to shoot all 12 music videos for an album. Crazy. I was just, my mind at the time, the dreams I had for myself, man, were crazy, Lemonga. Like, I was in that mode and I couldn't stop. And I think that's why also Niki started Olwala. As healthy as I was, and I was very healthy. I was gymming, I was eating really well. But, you know, health is not just physical. It's also emotional and it's spiritual.
And mental.
Yeah, and mental.
Your career is not a one-day interview, but we are here. There's been a switch in your music.
Yeah.
The sound and the tone, the lyrics, the language.
Yeah.
What is happening?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
If you really pay attention, not necessarily. So right now, most of the songs that I'm putting out have been mostly Afro pop, Afro soul, R&B, right? With a lot of English and a lot of Zulu.
And
most of the
Setswana.
songs.
There's 2 songs.
And
that's Setswana.
yes, and then there's Setswana,
Yes.
right? That is new.
Okay.
That's probably the only new thing.
Yes.
Because my first song I dropped in 2009, Know You Better, was a Zulu song.
Yes.
And then The Love I Know I Deserve, from here on, I was singing English most of the times. But in between, some Zulu love songs too, like Landela with Sisi, that's a Zulu song. So I've always had the same type of formula. So I would make dance music, which mostly was English, and then I would make South African ballad love songs in Zulu, most of them. And then recently, I went into studio with one of the producers from Juanito Mus. He actually just we just lost him a few months ago.
Ish.
We did a song called Lerato. Lerato ga le nna thaka. And that blew up on social media. Like, it went crazy on TikTok because when we were shooting the visuals, I decided that I'm gonna do this 5-part visual social media snippet series.
Wait, isn't that the song that you featured Hansi?
No. In fact, Lerato was actually the slight pivot that started happening with my career, because that is when I went viral for wearing the Engine Garage uniform.
Ah.
And everyone was in limbo.
What happened
Everyone
to a sexy
was
guy?
like, yo, Donald, this time
Uma, ka.
Abuti.
Uma,
Let me tell you, I have a story about that, because it's not spoken enough.
I hate it.
Let me tell you, that year, by the way, that was a 5-part series, ne?
Sure.
For Lerato. So I said to my team, yo, I want to shoot 5 videos where I enter into someone's world. You see what Nasty C started doing last year?
Yeah.
I did that first.
Wow.
So
What R. Kelly did years ago, got trapped in the closet.
No, not that. No, I was just shooting small
Your project.
snippets, but dressed in for. Okay, so let me tell you how it worked. So the first one was I was a high school kid wearing school uniform, and I was just reciting the lyrics of the song to the camera. The second one was actually that one, the Engine Garage. I was now an engine garage petrol attendant, and the third one I was a what do you call it? A waiter in a restaurant. The fourth one, I was a pick it up guy. I did the series. I actually did it. You can go social media and look for it. For Lerato, that was part of the marketing for the song.
Sure.
Because we live in a social media era and digital and very visual. So we shot all of that. But the Engine Garage went its own direction. Everyone was like, yo, what happened to the Donald guy, the handsome, the love I know I deserve? Apparently he now works at Engine Garage. So we, lady man. And let me tell you.
I hate that.
Listen, we looked at it, and then we had a chat with the team. We were like, yo, so what are we doing with this thing? Are we countering this thing, doing statements? And I was like, nope, we're not doing any of that.
Because that's a
Let
South
it go.
African thing. Like, people are working.
Let it go.
In-
Let me tell you, I was like, let it go. Let people believe whatever it is that they want to believe. That's always been my position when it comes to anything that is destructive, that comes my direction. If it's destructive, I'm not giving it any of my attention. In fact, if it can help me put me out there, I'm gonna let it happen. And that's exactly what happened. So that content with me wearing the Engine Garage was connected to the song, and the song started moving because of that. In fact, it's on millions and millions of.
They wanted to confirm.
It's on millions of streams
They
now.
wanted to confirm for me.
Hori, is it true? Is it what? So now, why that thing blew up was because there was a conversation and an argument between people on the comments. Others are saying, no, guys, he owns the garage. Others are saying, no, but he works there, he's uwile. And others are saying, no, guys, he's shooting a music video. So it was a whole mess, bro. And I was on people's statuses on TikTok. I was on people's statuses on their WhatsApp, on family groups. But here's the funny part. People, because at that time, because it's social media, that's when I knew social media is so powerful, bro. During that week or those 2 weeks, because this thing trended for a while, that week, bro, I would be in the streets and I would meet people and they'd look at me and they'd look at me like very shocked because I'm in a really nice car.
You know what you're pulling? Yeah.
But here's the thing. It was there. Hold on. Isn't this guy supposed to be working at... Why is he... So now some people then would notice very quickly that no, man, something's not adding up and it will be a joke. So clock and then we will all laugh about it. And this was a conversation and I connected with a lot of petrol attendants at that time.
Wow.
Because of that, you know. And the song went crazy, bro, especially in Botswana. So Botswana, Lerato became a really, really huge song. And that called for my collaboration with Hansi. Then, you know, I would, at the time I was actually working at Master KG Studios a lot. And then when I got to the studio one time, they played me one of the songs that they had done with Hansi. And that song was Milipiluli Moya. I loved it immediately and I was like, yo, I'm putting in a verse. I put in a verse and we called him immediately, told him, yo, there's a new verse on your song, brother. I'm inside. You know, and that's I would say that's where really the Tswana pivot started coming into play, because ke Motswana, but I've always been not so sure about how to create music in my own language, because it's never really been a thing. And people don't really understand this. Like, from especially singing music, I'm not talking about Motswako, because Motswako was something that the guys created as a conglomerate and made it a thing and made it fashionable, right? But for us singers, there's never been a singer that came out and made a national anthem as Setswana. It was so difficult, you know? And I know KB did it also. However, it was always limited. If you remember, you know, she would also have to sing a lot in English and mix it up and do all those things. So I never even knew I could write in Setswana. That was also that.
And your verse was crazy, by the way.
On Milipil.
Yes.
That's so crazy.
In fact, the visuals that you guys shot.
Yeah. So for me, that moment, bro, was a moment of also exploring. I was exploring other things that I could do with my talent. I've always known one day I'm going to get it right with the Setswana, because for me, that's personal. You know, I've got to do it right. That's my language, bro. You know, it means so much more. So it's even beyond trying to sell records. You know? So yeah, so I did the Tswana thing, and then I did a lot of bookings in Botswana in the past 2 to 3 years actually.
You know, I once tried to do an EP, yes, Setswana singers.
Singers, okay.
And just 5-track album, and it feels horribly.
It's not easy.
Yeah, now that we are talking now, I realize, okay, maybe...
Because the Nguni language is what really runs this country. And not just this country, the continent. The Nguni language, the Xhosa, the Zulu, is what penetrates even in other African countries, unfortunately. It's very difficult, and I mean, that's why whatever Lekompo is doing is absolutely unfounded.
Yeah. I know Lekompo.
Because they've been able to somehow break it a little bit, not all the way, because of the language barrier, but they've found a way to like still...
To enter the game.
You know. So, but that's where the Tswana thing. And then I'm now in my Tswana bag, though. I'm in my Tswana bag right now.
So, the engine story.
Yeah.
I remember the one time there was a guy who looked like Tux. And that guy was a traffic cop. And the picture trended to Tuxicule traffic.
Okay.
Right. And I'm like, this is not Tux. Why it? Was it to date?
Yeah.
Tux is on traffic. I'm like, guys.
Yes.
Like,
and also that's the danger about social media right now, is that even when there's like a fix, if you're trying to fix something or send a statement to correct what, it doesn't reach everybody. So there's people that still think I'm a petrol attendant, believe it or not.
Do you think being famous, obviously you were looking for a dream to make it, you made it, and it came with you being famous.
Yeah.
Does it have its highs and lows?
Yeah, of course. Both ways, my brother. That's what it comes with. It comes with the positives and the negatives. And you have to find a way to live through and embrace the negatives.
What do you do when someone comes at you in the space like this, controversy?
I deal with them on a human level. Me, I'm not... And also, for some reason, it's like people know how to read energies, man. Nobody comes to me with Ntonyana Saiti. Luckily. Thank God. People only do that on social media. They don't come to me in real life with like...
Why do they think for breaking it or having the numbers, whatever, you have to go in controversy?
I really don't know. I mean, obviously, there's been some artists who were introduced to us through some controversial what, and they found a way to make it a thing and even got paid out of it, which is great, right?
Right.
But there's a downside to that. And for me, the downside is really where my concern is. It's entertainment for the people and for the audience. It's entertainment. But for you, the person who's going through this thing, it's real life. And nobody even cares to ask, what is he going through when he's at home, going through whatever this controversy is? What is the mental space that this person is in? How does this thing affect them? And that's where I've always said, as much as I'm in this entertainment industry, for me, I fight to be a human being every single day of my life. That's the one thing I will fight for until the day I die. I don't want to ever find myself in a position where now this thing has consumed me so much. Because unfortunately, that's what it's going to do. It's going to destroy you. So you saying, yo, I'm going to be famous with my girlfriend and we're going to use our relationship to get paid. You are saying, okay, sharp. Chances are we're probably going to make some money out of it if we really know what we're doing. But then also chances are it's also going to destroy you guys behind the scenes. Because now you've invited 56 million people into your business. And whether you like it or not, they are always going to be in your business, not in your own time. Even when you feel like, okay, I think, guys, we're enough. We don't want...
It's a rap now.
No, it's a rap. No. They're like, no, you don't get to tell us. You invited us into this thing. So deal with it. And that's always been a thing for me. I've always said, if you really care about yourself and the people you love, keep them and keep your own life, real life business out of the media. Do that as much as you possibly can. Then you will live a very happy life for as long as you possibly can. But the minute you play around with something serious in the media, you're playing around with it. Because I agree, you're trying to like gain from it. You're like, no, but if we do this thing, if we go on a vacation, or if we plant this, we plant that, this is going to happen, and then the brands are going to come, and then we're going to make money. There's always the back end of it. It's entertainment for you, but it's real life for me. I keep reminding myself that. I always remind myself that for everybody else, them seeing me in a engine garage uniform, entertainment. Ne? Mara, the comments that say, shame, it's painful, and I have to deal with that. I have to deal with the fact that there's a specific notion about me, which is totally false.
Yes, to celebrate.
To celebrate my downfall.
Ish.
You understand? So my stance has always been, be an artist, be known for what you do, and protect everything else that is personal to you from the public as much as you possibly can. Protect it. And that's part of the thing that me and my ex could not see eye to eye on. It's like, we're both in the entertainment industry. It's never gonna work. These people are gonna destroy us. If we really love our relationship, we're gonna do everything to protect it. And part of the way to do that is by keeping it away from the entertainment. It's not to say we're hiding, but it's to say we will protect what we have until we're married, until we've got kids, until, you know what I mean? It's not going to be, you're not going to be Donald's girlfriend and now be known as Donald's girlfriend. I want you to be known as yourself. And I also want to be known as myself, But by the time this thing has matured and now we are older, nobody really cares that much anymore. We can enjoy our lives. And we didn't see eye to eye on that.
Sure. Yeah, no. What is Donald busy with right now?
Whew. Jeez, man.
Except the businesses that I know.
I'm busy with music, man. It's always gonna be music. I love music so much. I can't do without it. Also, just from a therapeutic point of view, music is therapeutic to me. It keeps me alive. So I'm always working. I'm working with a lot of young people because I love to stay young, and young people are the ones that will make you feel like, yo, you got the energy to do this. Because this industry is so tough, bro. It's so easy for you to just one day wake up and say, I can't do this anymore. So I'm working with a lot of young people, man. I'm making such amazing music with 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds. I've got a song with a 17-year-old kid right now.
Wow.
By the name of Skinsego, whom I actually traveled with over December. For this past December, I did a couple of shows with him. I was introducing him to the crowd because I was doing a couple of festivals this December. Thank God we still get bookings.
And
Thank
festivals.
God. Thank God.
Yeah.
After all these years. But, I'm working. I've got a song with Skinsego. I've got a song with Pure Black. That's another 19-year-old. I've got a song with Mikindlovu. That's another 19-year-old. And these are all across different genres, some amapiano nyana, soulful amapiano, afro pop, afro soul, Yeah, man. That's pretty much what I did. Oh, I just made music with Makati for the first time.
This is crazy.
Yeah,
But it
just
was
made
bound to happen because you are in the studio so much. Saka,
Yeah, with Master KG, no, but with this one we didn't do it.
Okay.
Called Master KG. In fact, she made the call. She was doing a camp. She's busy with an album right now or an EP. So she made the call for me to come through, and I went through and we made a beautiful song together. I just dropped a new single called Amanga with Amanda Black, which
yeah. Beautiful song.
Oh, man.
Beautiful song.
I love that collaboration.
I wonder how you get these collaborations because it's not easy to get a collab, even from someone who you think.
I'm human. I'm human, man. People remember that. I think people remember me for being human more than they remember me for my songs. I think everybody is already over the fact that I am Donald and I've got these hit songs. You
don't have to switch anything off.
I'm a human being at all times, bro. And I think that's where me and Amanda connect the most because she's the most purest human being you'll ever come across. And we're having a great time right now, actually, like just doing promo for the song. And yeah, man. So there's a lot. I'm just in collaboration mode right now. I'm not sure if I'm gonna work on an album this year. It might be next year. But yeah, the music continues. But 2026 is also a very special year because it's the 10th year anniversary of my one-man show, The Red Mic Experience. Yeah, and if everything goes well, we might be doing something special.
How did the Red Mic concept start? Because one moment you had the red mic, red suit, red cover.
Yeah.
And you are such a creative. I feel like at some point...
I don't think it's spoken enough, actually, about how creative...
Dog, you're so dope. You feel like you need to be having this creative hub where you execute these ideas with someone's budget. I don't know
who's going to give us the money.
Yes, you shot 5 videos for EP, 12 tracker videos, and I'm sure you're involved in the videos. So
it's all me.
Ah, man.
Everything is me, bro. It's all me. My vision, and I've got a team around me that also understands that this is Donald's vision, and we just need to make sure that we support him to execute it best he possibly can. So when we first came out with Train of Love, it was just the breakout, and then immediately after that, the concepts began. The following album was Black and White. And I went for a 2-year where I was wearing
black and white. I remember. My lady was dressing you.
My lady was my designer. We actually created something really powerful in the industry with our collaboration. And then from Black and White, I did an album. I curated an album where I featured all DJs in one album. Where I had Euphonic, I had Black Motion, I had Prince KB, I had Heavy K, I had Da Capo in one album. These are things that no one speaks about, by the way. And then I did the Red Mic Experience, which was my one-man show. And I had all those guys, by the way, at the show. They were all coming onto the show to be guests. Surprise guests also. Beautiful moment. And then I did the album, Her Name, no, not Her Name Is, Something More, where I featured the Nigerian superstar, Tiwa Savage. And then, so Red Mic was introduced to South Africa at the South African Music Awards in 2013 when I performed at those awards for the first time ever. And that was done intentionally because I've always wanted to have something that symbolizes the Donald brand later on in life. Like the Michael Jackson boots, the glove, especially the glove. I think that was more significant. And I've always said, I told you I'm the student of the game. I've always studied this thing. And I was like, for you to really be instilled and engraved in people's hearts forever, there's got to be a few elements to you that people can't forget you because of those things. And the Red Mic was that for me. I always felt like South Africans are not creative enough. They're also too safe. And I'm going to go out there and put myself out there. I introduced it at the Summers. The whole country was watching. That was the whole point. And they started calling it a dildo. Hey, what is this guy doing with the red dildo? So for the longest time, I think people didn't understand what this thing was about because At every show, before I come on stage, you would see the microphone stand, the red microphone stand, and then you knew.
Donald is about to perform.
Do you understand? That became the thing. And then when we did the red mic experience, that was now the stamp of the brand now. So we even created a show around the red mic. But it's deeper than that. For me, a microphone symbolizes something that allows me to communicate my talent to the world. For me, there's nothing that is more important than that as a symbol of a musician's career. And that's why I decided I'm going to create my own thing, and then one day it's going to have a life of its own. And that's exactly what's happening right now. I mean, I had someone stole it actually.
The mic.
Yeah, someone stole the mic in
I
2020.
put out a reward, my G.
No, that's a long time ago. We were already going through that. I even opened the case.
Hey.
I opened the case. I was on Metro FM with Touch. Touch was out there taking it too far. Touch was like, yo.
Take it too far.
He was like, yo, we got 100,000 in the case. If you get Donald's red mic, you get 100,000.
I
In my head, I'm like,
listened to that, I
100K. Like, we could buy two more mics. You know? But we went through the whole process and it got lost. But you see, that's the beauty about it. People don't even realize that I haven't had it for 3-4 years.
But
it's
here we are talking
it's
about it.
engraved in the brand. I don't even have to perform with the red mic anymore. But I'm Mr. Red Mic. Like everywhere I go, people used to call me by my songs. I Deserve, hey, Mr. Denial, Mr. What. You know, they used to call me those things. And then now, in 2026, they call me Mr. Red Mic more than they call me anything else. It's the craziest. They even ask me if I have it in the boot. Where's the mic? Mfethu?
They want to take pictures.
You understand? And that, for me, has been so significant, and it brings me to where I am today, because there's a certain journey that I'm about to take that's around that mic that I'm so excited about. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Let's announce.
I don't know. Are we announcing it?
We are announcing.
Damn. Okay, cool. Sharp. So the big announcement, we don't have dates yet, but the big announcement is that I have been working on a new show. It's a music talent show called On the Red Mic. And the show is going to be on YouTube. And the show will be discovering and introducing young, upcoming, never seen before South African vocalists. And I will be the introducing. I will be introducing a new singer each and every single week on the Red Mic. But here's the kicker. They get to perform with the Red Mic. That's what they perform with. What? So no one can steal it.
When is it premiering?
I don't have the dates yet because we're still working very hard behind the scenes to put it together. But I've already done my talent searching. I already have 10 of the first contestants. And if God allows, man, one day this is going to be the next South African artist.
Wow.
That's what we're working towards, yeah. Because I believe in the future of South African music. I believe the future, young people are the future. And at all times, we need to shine a light on young people. And that's why on this show, it's going to be about introducing people that people have never seen before. Some people have seen on TikTok, but they have not blown up yet. And all they need is a platform they can come and sing and the whole world can see them. And I just believe that I am really the guy to do that for singers in South Africa. Because I feel like singers in South Africa don't have a home. I think producers have a home. I think DJ Maphorisa is that home. But singers, vocalists, nobody really cares about vocalists. Vocalists just get used to make hot house songs out there and piano songs, but they don't. I think the value of a vocalist has deteriorated, and I'm trying to bring that back, with the show. But I will not be putting anyone famous on my show. Because there's a much bigger job that we are doing here. So it's not about farming for views or likes. I really, really want to change someone's life. But the beauty is that I get to pass on the Red Mic to them because the Red Mic has made me who I am today. And it could possibly make someone else's life dream come true.
Okay. I feel like I thought
Yeah.
you were just being a nice guy to me. But
Okay.
now, after this 2 hours or whatever this hours, I realized this is who you are.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
And I want to tell you, I personally appreciate you. And I think everybody that you meet
Yeah.
in your path,
Yeah.
appreciate you also. And you.
That's big, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we are very proud of you. Someone who's from the province, someone who is our brother,
Yeah.
someone who also read
Yeah.
and become someone else.
Yeah.
And
Friend of Motswako, by the way.
friend of
everybody.
hip hop.
Yep, friend of hip hop as a whole.
Yes,
Yeah.
we spoke about those collabos that you did, your
Yep.
Dream Team.
Dream Team,
yeah.
yeah.
I saw you with Maraza on TikTok.
Yep. Those are my brothers, man.
You know what I mean?
Cooley is my brother.
Cooley, you know.
Everyone.
Uh,
KG. There's a respect there
yes.
that we have, you know. Amazing guys. Double HP was my friend.
Yes.
I saw him a week before he left us. We had a really, really deep conversation, actually. That moment will last with me forever. We were at the Durban July.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for honoring this invite.
Thank you so much for having me, Mlengwa Mwanga, man. I appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maji.
Abuti,
Donald, ladies and gents.
let's go.
And cutting.
Okay, that's enough.